Okay, Nigeria's largest brewer and one of the most capitalized companies on our markets reporting very nasty earnings today. Early today, there's a crude awakening for us this Thursday. Nigerian breweries reporting sales up by 10% year on year, but profit after tax and after tax declined 11%. Yesterday, Nigerian breweries, largest shareholder Heineken did a conference call around the world from the Netherlands, saying that things are a little bit tepid, severe gross margin contraction in the Nigerian market. 4.4 billion naira in raw figures was the decline in profit to 38.1 billion. In 2014, the company made much more than about 42 billion naira, despite its revenue growth to almost 294 billion naira. Yesterday, Nigerian Breweries' largest shareholder, Heineken, of course, talked about the markets, not just in Nigeria, but around the world, and says Nigerian market is declining in volume and sales of premium brands. And what happened? Shareholders of Nigerian Breweries will, however, enjoy a cash dividend of 360 kobo has been proposed. If you add that to the interim dividend, according to an analyst report from FBN Quest, that's much better than the consensus for the dividend per share, 368 against 331. Nigerian Breweries' main rival, Guinness Nigeria, also reported a sharp decline in its top brands in the country last year as tough economic environment slams disposable income and consumers seek cheaper beverages produced by smaller or marginal brewers. So let's talk about the business of commodities, and you've heard how commodity prices are damaging earnings, including economic data of countries around the world, especially those exposed to resources from Australia to South Africa to Ghana. Mining giant Rio Tinto reporting an annual net loss of $866 million today and kept dividends flat as commodity prices plunge and the slowdown in China continue. That company was hit with $1.8 billion in write-downs. Underlying earnings slumped 51% for Rio Tinto to $4.54 billion last year from $9.31 billion in 2014 because of weaker iron ore, copper, and aluminum prices. Rio Tinto has held its full-year dividend steady at $2.15 a share, but indicated that will be cut in the future. In a statement, Rio Tinto says that given the uncertainty in the global market conditions, it was no longer appropriate to maintain the progressive dividend policy. End of quote. Mining companies are under pressure to curb spending as they struggle to respond to the worst market conditions in nearly 2 decades. Let's keep it in the business of earnings. It's the earnings season. Let's go back to Europe, where French oil major Total has reported a 20% increase in annual net profit to $5.1 billion compared with $4.2 billion in 2014. As with other oil companies, the rise in the net profit for Total came thanks to its oil refinery business, which saw 96% increase to almost $5 billion in the year under review. But profits from Total's oil exploration business plunged more than 50% in the year to $4.8 billion. That's very delicate balancing. Total says his result is the best performance among the oil majors, and that was true. Look at BP, you look at ExxonMobil and Chevron and Royal Dutch Shell is all negative. So Total is the one coming with these good numbers because of refining business. Oil prices are falling some 30% last year alone, forcing major oil firms around the world to cut back on investments in exploration and denting profits from oil exploration. Gas is tied to the business of oil. You've seen oil prices tanking this year as it was in 2015. Gas prices also tanking. Exports are falling. Demand is weak around the world. Nigeria was no exception. Let's bring in Okoyemi Ogunsade, who is a senior investment officer at Financial Derivatives. Thank you very much, Okoyemi, for joining us for a few minutes conversation on the business of gas. You track these numbers every day. Where are we with the price of natural gas at the moment?
Well, the price of natural gas currently is around $2. That's the U.S. natural gas. But what we have in Nigeria is that our exports to the Asian market has gone down significantly from 48% to 34% last year, according to the report released by the NMPC. And this is because the JKM, which is the Japanese Korean marker, has gone down from $18 to $5. And given the fact that Japan and Korea are the two largest exporter of gas within their area, and the fact that their prices are coming down, it makes economic sense that the Asian markets would shift focus from the Nigerian market, so to speak, to the closer markets in terms of proximity, being Japan and Korea. And so what we have in Nigeria right now is that our exports to that area is going down, and natural gas prices are going down as well, based on what is happening in the oil, and based on the price patterns over the years. What we've noticed that there tends to be a correlation between crude oil prices and natural gas prices, in the sense that whenever there is a peak in oil prices, natural gas prices have risen as well, and whenever there's a plummet in oil prices, you also have natural gas prices coming down as well. And as of today, the two fuels are close substitutes for each other in the regions, and in the region where both are supported by technology and infrastructure, because for natural gas and crude oil, they are different. They have different patterns in terms of exploration and in terms of production, so to speak. And in areas where you have the technology and infrastructure to produce these two products, we've seen that they are used closely as substitutes. In the United States, for example, United States is one of the few countries which appears to have both the balanced infrastructure as well as the established market for both natural gas and oil. And but at the global level, oil continues to be the king, with observations indicating that natural gas sometimes, natural gas prices, it's just following oil prices with a time lag.
Opeyemi, we know who to blame for oil prices tanking. Who do we blame for gas prices falling?
Like I said earlier, all natural gas prices and oil prices tend to move in tandem with each other, based on what is happening in the oil, because oil is on the global market front, oil is seen as the king, and natural prices, literally, it's more like a follower, following the leader, so to speak. And but what we've seen as well is, in terms of production, if you look at the US and the the Energy Information Agency released a report yesterday, and in that report, it indicated that crude stockpile for natural gas has also gone up as well. So that also plays into the fact that natural gas prices are going down. But
Okay, sorry, I guess we lost that connection there via Skype from downtown Lagos. Okoyemi Ogunta, the Senior Investment Officer with Financial Derivatives Company. We thank you for your time. We enjoyed that conversation. We apologize for that. Let's move on to one other African country here. We've been speaking a little bit about Nigeria there, but let's talk about Sudan, where annual inflation rate eased slightly to 12.44% in January. That's from 12.58% in December of last year. A monthly report from Sudan's Central Statistics Office says the drop was partly due to cheaper global oil prices. Sudan became an oil importer after South Sudan seceded in 2011. The new nation took with it 3/4 of Sudan's oil output, the main source of foreign currency used to support the Sudanese pound and to pay for food and other inputs. Cuts in fuel subsidies introduced in 2013 pushed inflation up, but these effects have since begun to ease. Sudan expects a budget deficit of 1.6% of its gross domestic product for the coming year. That's up from 1.2% in 2015. Let's take a little bit and come down a little bit to the northern part of the southern Africa, where Zambia is located. The economy expected to expand by 3.7% this year, largely stable from last year, but could grow more than 4% in 2017. An electricity shortage in Africa's #2 copper producer has stunted its mining sector, while weaker copper prices due to slower growth in top consumer China market have put pressure on Zambia's economy and its currency. Global firms Glencore and Vedanta were forced to lay off workers after temporarily closing certain mining operations to curb copper output in a bid to support flagging prices, shedding thousands of jobs. The World Bank said Zambia's GDP growth will fall below 4% this year due to a combination of domestic and international pressures, but expansion will pick up in the following years. We have a lot to talk about when we come back after the break. Federal Reserve Chairman Janet Yellen spoke at the Capitol yesterday in a congressional hearing, the first time since the last interest rate by the world's #1 central banker. We'll talk about that later. And of course, we got our own Naira conundrum: to devalue or not to devalue, devaluation. To be or not to be. We spent a number of hours early today listening to conversations surrounding that very important topic. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari says he will not preside over that, or what he called, quote unquote, the murder of the Naira. No murder on anybody's hands, not the president. We'll be right back.